Imagine turning the struggles of dyslexia and other neurodiversities into superpower that fuels creativity, success, and impact. That's exactly what Jake and Max did with Superpower Mentors, a program empowering neurodiverse individuals to thrive. And today they're going to share with us how you can do it too. Hi, I'm Gil Gershoni, founder of Dyslexic Design Thinking and Gershoni Creative Agency. As someone who is embracing the power of thinking differently, I'm so excited to share this inspiring conversation with you today. Hit the like button, subscribe, and stick around. Let's jump right in. Welcome, Jake. Welcome, Max. Great to see you guys.
Hey, you too, Gil.
Thanks for having us, Gil.
Oh, absolutely. I've been so inspired by what you guys are doing. I wanted to start with really kind of, first and foremost, to our audience. You know, you guys are siblings. You guys also are business partners. How is it as siblings working together? And did you ever imagine that this is where you guys are going to end up?
You know, Gil, Max, I'm going to jump on this one. So I started Superpower Mentors about 5 years ago. And Max and I have always talked about the idea of working together, but it's always been the question when, right? So building the company first on my own, Max was always there kind of as an advisor, as, you know, someone that I would lean on with questions. And then there was one point of where there was an opportunity for Max to jump in, and it was the best decision that we ever made.
Amazing. Max?
Jake really nailed it. The overall essence of our relationship growing up has been not if we were going to do something, if we were going to go into business, if we're going to be partners, whatever that is, it's when that's going to happen. So Jake being the total opposite in a lot of respects as myself, growing up, of course, we had this, butting heads relationship, but you get to a certain point, as all siblings do, where that blossoms into a real friendship and a real respect for one another. And because we're such opposites, we can stay in our lanes. And that's just what we do here at Superpower Mentors.
Mm-hmm. How are you similar and how are you different?
Oh, man. You know, I would say that we are, if you put us both together into one brain, we complete a whole brain, right? So I'm right side, Max is the left side, right? And I think that's a big point here is, Max is 4 years younger than me. And being able to recognize our own strengths and challenges. What is my strengths are Max's challenges, and what are Max's strengths are my challenges, right? So we're able to really feed off each other, recognizing that part of being neurodiverse is, for me, I thrive when you give me one job and I'm the best. When you give me 10 things to think about at once, that's where I struggle. And that is Max's strength. Max can see 10 things at once and be able to manage all of that when I can just focus on that one thing. I would say that for me would be big.
Mm-hmm.
Partnerships are best described and are, best formulated on the foundation of humility. Knowing who you are, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you need to add to your life in order to be successful. Jake, 2 years ago when we first partnered, had that aha moment of, okay, I really need the other half of my skill set in order for Superpower Mentors to be as impactful as possible. And here we are today. We've been working pretty seamlessly. We've had our ups and downs, but we're siblings. We've spent our entire lives really knowing how to go at it. But we are able to do it in context to a greater mission.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I can so relate to what you both are saying about the way you think differently and how to embrace relationship, partnership, mentors. And realize that the fact that I am very strong in one way and the other person is strong in another way, it's not a competition. It's not better or worse. It's better together. And arriving to those successes is so much better. You know, it's like I love that idea that when you kind of embrace that, you are stronger for it. You know.
You know, I always say that when Max and I first started working together, Gil, there was this, you know, as a guy with ADHD, right? Struggling being misunderstood all my life was something that I always felt that I had to prove myself. And I feel like that a lot of men listening to this could relate, right? Of where we kind of have this little chip on our shoulder, and to be able to take a minute and reflect and say, you know what, I actually can't do everything, right? And there are people in my corner that can fill those roles. And there's this huge analogy that we like to use that where, you know, we're the captain of our own ship. And in order to drive a ship, you can't do it alone. You need a crew. Right. You need a co-captain. You need your shipmates. You need the people in the sails. You need the people down in the hole. And to be able to recognize that and to find the right people to fill in those voids that are perhaps maybe you can do individually but not collectively is, you know, ever since Max came in, everything started to explode in a good way. I kept hitting the ceiling. Like, why can't I just get above this one piece in the business? And I realized that because I needed someone else to take on these other areas. And yeah.
Yeah. You know, I know, Max, I know that you were the captain of your varsity basketball team in college, right? High school?
High school, and then you know there was a moment I played basketball abroad in Rome, Italy, for my first semester of college. That was a lot of fun, but
awesome.
Mainly captain in college, in high school, and yeah.
How is that experience as we're talking about teams and leadership? Yeah. How does that help you kind of begin your career as a leader, as a professional, and how does it affect your work environment?
My experience with basketball, the ups and the downs, I can talk about this for a long time, but my experiences with the varying styles of leadership helped shape what I wanted to become. I'm a strong believer in diversifying your experiences, and the most powerful experience that you can have is realizing what you don't like, because that means that you're trying many different things. That means you're putting yourself in many different experiences. I had a lot of leaders in my time playing basketball that I took away things that I didn't necessarily want to be myself, and that helped shape my mentality of I want to be a coach, not necessarily a basketball coach, but I want to help guide people and guide a group of people to being their best selves. And that's in essence what I tried to implement as a leader, whether it was on my own basketball team in high school or whether it's, you know, internally at Superpower Mentors. It's taking all of our people that are so passionately involved with the company and guiding them into being their best selves and overall making the company its best self.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea that you have, you know, obviously being a coach is half the story. The other part is you have to be coachable, and you have to be able to see the individual not for their differences, but for their strengths, you know, because as we do that, then we're able to then see the whole person, as I know we three of us have talked about this many times before, and empower them to be able to reach their best selves without even them be able to see it yet, because a coach can kind of see where you need to go and how to support you. Do you do that with Jake?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We holding ourselves accountable. We are two young professionals. All we have is each other. That's all we have. That's all we know. That's all we've known. We are really able to take those, where we want to go, the goal, the end zone, the end post, and drive forward. Given the fact that we just want to hold each other accountable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so cool as you guys doing it with each other as brothers, as partners, as Jake, as you were saying, one is the right side, the left side of the brain. It's exactly what you guys are doing for your business as well for others. So it's like you walking the walk, you're talking the talk, and you're feeling it and you know where to come from. Jake, I know you wrote in 2019, you wrote this beautiful poem, The Forgotten Child. Tell me a little bit about the poem. What was the catalyst? What was the spark for you to write the poem?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I had the opportunity, going back a little bit further, of going to a school that specialized in learning differences. And that story began after being pulled out of school in 6th grade, being 4 grade levels behind in reading, forced to read out loud in class, hearing the kids laughing, and being told I would never go to college. And those memories stick, right? And I had the opportunity of getting into a school that specialized in learning differences. It changed my life. And 100% of us got into college. I got into college despite what I was being told. And it was like, oh my goodness. So fast forward a little bit more, and here I am in school, and I'm starting to see a lot of my fellow classmates drop out from my old high school. And it started to make me think, my destiny wasn't supposed to have been here. I was told that this wouldn't happen, and here I am.
Right.
In school. And I had this epiphany moment that, I need to somehow share this. But it can't be about me, right? Because it's not just my story. So I was inspired to write this spoken word poem for a poetry slam that was a really big event at my school. And it was about those who are misunderstood for who they are from society, and then them embracing themselves and then doing something about it. Right? It's called The Forgotten Child. And that was the catalyst of really my whole journey in this space, right? It was picked up by Harvey Hubble, who is an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker. And he was like, Jake, I want to turn that into a film. So in 2019, we were filming it, and then we launched the video in October, and within 24 hours it was getting a lot of attention. And I was being reached out to speak at some places, and it was like, whoa, wait a minute, I have a window, right? Because I had another job. I was working in another company, doing my thing, and there was this window of opportunity to do something radical and just for the sake of my purpose in life. And I started to talk about it, right? The kid who's sitting in the back of the class, who the teacher can't reach, now he found that voice. Now he has something to say, right? What can we learn from that person? And I started to see a lot of parents coming up, and I realized that the forgotten child represented more than just learning differences. And actually, every single person has something in them that is their own younger self that they perhaps have forgotten. Right. And the stories being told from them, and what, they'd come to me in tears, even recently. I mean, still, people are like, oh my gosh, the forgotten child. People really resonated with it. I think that there's something much bigger here that they're trying to say.
Yeah, I watched it many times. It's so moving. I can definitely, when I put my professional hat, I can relate to it. When I put my inner child's feeling, I can feel the sadness in it. There's something about it, like Forgotten Child, it's almost biblical, There's something about it that we all carry that moment that we weren't seen, we weren't understood, we felt ashamed, we felt like we didn't get our own, whatever it is. We had different ways of learning. For me, it was not only dyslexia, but English as a second language and cultural changes. And then you forget about it, and then it does show up if you don't take care of it later on with all sorts of different ways. And I felt that the piece was such a beautiful way of telling that sort of universal story. Did that poem influence you to start advocating for neurodiverse individuals? Is that kind of what that was the beginning of that for you?
It did. Superpower Mentors was built to basically attract the families of the forgotten child. Everything that the forgotten child represents, Okay, because the forgotten child for us, listen, like, we've become so obsessed with trying to find the answer in our society that I believe that pursuit has become the problem. And we forget that our confidence is right it's in our face. It's in our interest, the things that we love. It's right there, but we forget, right? So even just like back as a kid building Legos and just like when things were just like your mind was exploding, like, why aren't we doing that again? So that's the concept where not only did I dedicate my life to want to, empower the forgotten child and help people put on their metaphorical cape, right? Embracing who they are, but building a program of which those that have already discovered themselves can go back to empower those that are currently in it, right? And also supporting the parents. So really, that's the essence of it and how that's been influenced within Superpower Mentors.
Amazing. Max, what happened in your path that you guys came together? Like, was there a moment for you that you said, you know what, I'm going to go and join Jake and make this vision happen?
Yeah, the moment here really started throughout my life. There's no specific point I can point to that said, wow, I really am connected to neurodiversity or learning differences, because for the reason that Jake grew up with it. I'm the sibling that isn't really spoken about in these stories of, a lot of people that have dyslexia, they are in a family dynamic. They are, they're a piece to a bigger puzzle. I was on the outside looking in on Jake's struggles, looking in on, we have family dinner. Well, our family is very, very close, and we have family dinner every single night. Growing up, as much as we could. And how come my big brother is not eating dinner? Oh, he's, taking this pill that makes him eat at 11:30 at night, a full meal while you're going to bed. That's confusing for a kid growing up. Why my big brother what's going on? What's happening? And hopping from school to school, trying to figure it out. I witnessed that on the sidelines. I witnessed my parents, really working hard to find the right, the path. Because once you get the diagnosis, the predetermined path all of a sudden gets thrown into shambles. So I'm witnessing my brother go down this road of trying to discover the path again. Was told he would never go to college, was told he would never be successful. Okay, where's the path? So going back to how I got involved with Superpower Mentors, I've always been involved with Superpower Mentors. There's never been a time that I haven't been involved with Superpower Mentors. I come from a business background. I went to school, studied business. My father is a second generation business owner. That's a family business. A lot of our discussions around dinner was about the family business. It was like we turned our dining room into a boardroom sometimes. So Jake, building this company, I've always been assisting. I've always been advising. So coming into Superpower Mentors was very natural because it's always been part of my life. It's advocating and helping and assisting and being that other side of Jake has always been part of my life. And when the opportunity arose in early 2023, I was still in school. I was still studying. But it didn't matter because it was such a no-brainer to begin a journey of impact and fulfillment and helping a community that so desperately needs advocates and support that I could never pass it up, and I would never look back and do it any differently.
And Gil, our whole family is in the business of helping people. That's what we do. It's like in the Sussman blood, right? And to recognize that there's this population of people with so much potential that are so misunderstood. You know, it's like they're missing. There's just a key that we just need to unlock, right? And something about this story is that in and of itself, this whole experience, we're living the forgotten child also, right? And how we go back working with these kids, and it's healing in and of itself. Like, I healed my entire past from working with these kids, right? We block it out, and all of a sudden we get a chance to work with them again. And, to see Max and to hear Max's story through it, like we're seeing it in real time. There is such an impact that this journey has on siblings. And I think that it's something that's not often talked about because it is an impact.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's in my case, the dyslexic and then dyslexic adjacent, and, it took for me also, I work very often with my brothers. I never thought that my struggle was their struggles in a different way, or my attention was they're getting less attention from the support and the parents or in the environment, or, understood in different ways, but tremendously strong bond. What is for our audience out there that maybe is not familiar with you guys, Superpower Mentors, tell me a little bit about what is Superpower Mentors?
Sure. Superpower Mentors is a mentorship program, right, of where we match neurodiverse youth and young adults to their own mentor who not only shares the same learning difference, but more importantly, the same interests. Okay? And it was built really recognizing that there's so many professionals out there for our kids, and every single person plays a very important role. Remember the ship analogy, right, of where there's a crew for everyone, but in that crew, there's no one that specializes in relatability. Someone that can say, I not only have what you have, but I love what you love, and I've been where you've been. So that's the essence of Superpower Mentors. And the other side of that is we work with the parents, right? Giving them feedback, right? Helping them be their family partner, because we're helping their kids build a foundation to independence, right? And now we're able to help be their bridge as parents navigate their path.
What type of individuals can benefit from Superpower Mentor services?
There's some pretty startling stats about this. Like Gil, I don't know about you growing up, but, I had like a bunch of different professionals that I was talking to, and yet I still felt alone. I still felt like no one got it. Right? But you'd think that the more we're talking to the therapist and the psychologist and all these different people, that we'd feel seen and heard and supported. Right? But there's still that gap. That's significant. More people reported going to therapy than ever before last year, yet depression and loneliness is at an all-time high. Right. 40% of U.S. college students drop out of school every year. Right? Having a learning difference, we have a 3 times higher likelihood of dropping out. Right. So there's a significant problem going on here. Yet 1 out of 5 people have dyslexia. Right. It's so common, yet we feel so alone.
Right.
Something doesn't add up, right? So instead of just focusing, like I said earlier, on just solving, what if we just look at what we have in front of us? Okay, so that's the concept of just the color paint. We've done 10,000 sessions.
Wow.
It's been unbelievable. 10,000 sessions. We've worked with hundreds of families from all over the world because it's virtual, which, by the way, the virtual component is, the stereotype around virtual with people with learning differences is that it doesn't work, right? Virtual doesn't work. Well, the reason why that we found is because relatability is not in the picture, right? If I love space and rocket ships and my mentor's at NASA, right, who is like, in their mid to late 20s, early 30s with dyslexia, why not talk to them? Nerd out with me over video games and building robots.
Yeah.
Right? That's how we're able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I want a mentor. I think that what you're saying, and I could definitely, to your point, I very much relate to it, is that when you're young, People don't know, at least, when I was young, dyslexia and ADHD and things like that were not really understood. And I was coached, I was guided, I was taught by individuals that tried to fix me, and didn't understand how my full person works. Didn't understand that my gift of the dyslexia thinking and the dyslexia mind is part of it is challenging because I don't walk on straight lines. But if that's not the point, and the point is to sort of look at the world through a different narrow individual brain, that was not acknowledged. So I felt like I was always trying to get fixed, and they kept reminding me how broken or how different I was. And even though they came with a lot of, and good intentions, that reliability or the relationship to it, I never met anybody with dyslexia. I didn't have anybody that can say to me, yeah, maybe it's hard to read and write, but let's build a rocket and go to the moon, right? And that relationship was missing. And for me, doing all this advocacy around this narrow individuality, kind of like you guys, was really around trying to have the conversation with myself. It's really trying to figure out, who am I? And maybe instead of trying to hide this, bring it out to the open and create language and create community around it, was very, very transformative and very meaningful, and made all the difference in the world. And now it's addicting. I mean, I can see why you guys are at 10,000 plus, and I'm sure by next year you're going to double it, is because helping an individual find themselves and see themselves getting the fact that they actually have this innate power, and then see them sort of thrive with it. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? I mean, that is so powerful,
And it's important to recognize the challenges that come with dyslexia, the challenges that come with being neurodiversity in and of itself. We're superpower mentors. We aren't saying that it's not hard, but if you that's very important. It is not easy. Not at all. But channeling it, being able to channel your strengths will help you overcome those challenges, because it is hard. And adversity is part of the package of being neurodiverse. But it's how you overcome that adversity is what we're all about.
Right.
There's this whole controversial discussion around dyslexia and superpowers, right? And I don't know if you ever heard this before, but it's well, we can't say that they have these superpowers because that, minimizes the pain and suffering they're going through and all these different things. And I want to call this out because we're literally called Superpower Mentors, right? And I want to bring this up because I think it's an interesting discussion, because I think that a lot of it is about perspective, right? When you hear a superhero movie, this is not about, obviously we can't shoot lasers out of our eyes yet, right? Maybe a dyslexic will invent that, but for now that doesn't exist, right? But what we're saying is that when you think of a superhero movie, Gil, you could be a kid and an adult and still love it. It's one of the only genres that you can watch this and take something away with your kid, right? And if you look at the story of a hero, it's very similar to that of a dyslexic, right? You go from, when you hear Superman, it's not necessarily Superman, because that's what we called him. Just like Richard Branson, we hear Richard Branson, we're like, oh, billionaire, Virgin Airlines. We forget that he was just a kid who was extremely misunderstood too, just like Clark Kent, right? Just like you and I. At some point, we were extremely misunderstood, just like everyone else, these kids today. And at some point along the way, we put on our cape. And once we did that, we launched, okay? And we all did. That's how we became successful. But these kids, when they're in it, right? Having Richard Branson as your closest role model is very difficult because he's a billionaire, right? It's very hard to feel relatable to someone like that. But what we forget is that just like Branson, these kids are going through it right now, and it's not far off, right? Our mission is to help these kids put on their cape early versus later.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And there are there have been over 9,000 mentors that want to assist us in that journey. Over 9,000 mentors have applied to Superpower Mentors.
Wow.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. What is the difference between Superpower mentors, therapists, or tutors? Tell me a little bit about how that's different from that, and what would, let's say, like myself, a dyslexic, what kind of support does Superpower Mentors provides for individual like myself in a day-to-day? Like, what would one expect from the mentor relationship?
It's a great question. We get asked this all the time. I first want to preface that Superpower Mentors are in no way a replacement for a licensed medical professional.
Okay.
Right? Could we have someone that's a social worker as a mentor? Sure, but that's not the scope. Okay. So the difference between us and a coach, right, is that a coach, which by the way are great. When you hire a coach, you hire someone for a specific purpose, right? I want to get better at this thing, and they're going to take me there. Okay. But what's often forgotten is that a coach doesn't need to have the thing, number one, to help you grow with something. And also you may not build a relate to them, right? And a coach, when you think of a sideline, when you think of a game, like a soccer game, a coach in a soccer game is standing on the sidelines yelling at the players saying, hey, go over there, right? And bringing it back to this, you should write the email, right? You should make a list. But guess who's going to forget to make the list? Me, because I'm neurodiverse. I'm not going to do it, right? So a mentor is actually on the field playing the game with them, saying, hey, let's go over here together. Let's write that list right now. Let's call a school and ask them questions to the admissions office together, right? And that feeling, because remember the dopamine hit, we got to be in motion, right? It's not just about talk and saying, yeah, sure, great idea, but I'm not going to do it. Let's do it right now, okay? Because the mentor is also speaking on experience, and part of this relationship, Gil, is also a relationship. It's not just the work, which is what everyone else is focused on, right? So we have mentors that are playing video games with their mentees, or they're nerding out. We have one of our mentors helping their mentee launch his first music album, right? He's a professional music artist. So the idea here is that we're not just helping with the challenges of today, we're helping them launch. That's when it gets fun.
That's so
cool. And so that's the difference. And when it comes to what we work on, time management, executive functioning, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-advocacy skills, all of the foundational skills that lead to independence. But remember, none of that's possible without trust. Right. It's all wishful thinking, right? I can stay here all day and say the great things we do with these kids, but it's pointless if we can't build trust with them. Trust is what we're known for, right? So that's relatability.
Yeah.
A piece of the program that sticks out for me as the biggest difference between therapy, coach, and all of the above is our work with the family as a family unit. That's where our relationship with Jake and myself is very interesting. This is a family. We have different relationships, and every mentee that we work with also has their own unique family dynamic. That's why there's an emphasis with our work with every family on an individual level, so that the progress and the milestones and the growth that we have with our mentee is also being communicated as a group and not necessarily just with the mentor. There's a full communication channel between all parties involved so that we ensure progress.
Yeah. I love that. Tell me more about how does Superpower Mentors empowers young people, and more specifically, how it empowers their parents?
Empowerment is it's a really great word, but it's also a broad word, right? Because to be able to be empowered is like, we want to make them do an action. A lot of times these kids are stuck in a loop, right? Of where they may not have good outlets, right? Maybe they don't, we have a whole formula on how to help kids find healthy outlets, right? And there's a way to get someone unstuck, right? And a lot of that comes with building small goals to then help them start to make moves, right? We want the mentor's voice to be in the mentee's head saying, what would Jake do, right? That conversation is empowerment. That's independence. Because frankly, and for parents listening, it's, listen, I've asked, hundreds of parents this question. What's the ultimate goal of parenting, right? It's for your kid to be happy and independent. Happiness is relative because that depends on their independence, right? So it's really just independent, right? So what does that mean? And that's where the advocacy piece, when they start to see wins, even the smallest ones like making my bed in the morning, that's a win. If they can recognize that, that is movement toward the right direction. The other side is what is their relationship with pain. Now, I'm not saying physical pain. What I'm saying is their relationship with their inner voice, right? For us, when we're faced with an obstacle, maybe we're going to take that step forward towards it. But for someone that doesn't have a good relationship with being uncomfortable, right? Maybe their reaction is to regress and to isolate. Right? And that's a lot of kids today. So that, I believe, and we believe, is the basis to a lot of the reasons as to why someone's stuck. So that's where we begin and move forward. Go ahead, Max. Yeah.
Gil, the light at the, I would say Superpower Mentors represents the light at the end of the tunnel. Empowering parents, getting parents excited for the future of their neurodiverse child when there's so many unknowns, that's a feat in and of itself. A lot of parents come to us very concerned about what the next step is, or what they're not even thinking about 2 steps down the line. They just want right here and now. What can we do to get from point A to point B within the shortest time frame possible? Through Superpower Mentors, we are connecting a parent with the older version of their child that has already gone through all of this stuff, that's already been struggling and overcame it and has their own unique stories and experiences to that fact. Connecting not just the mentee to this person, but the parents. The parents are like, okay, I can take a breath. Things are going to be okay. This is, struggling is fine, but it's not going to turn out like my worst fears.
Right. I can definitely see how, as a parent of a child, and obviously seeing my parents in very different times and knowledge at the time, is that how do we fix you? And all the conversation is, what do we do to support you, tutor you, teach you, learn differently, memorize? But everything we're doing, to your point about trust and confidence and inner light, we're eroding it because we keep emphasizing by our body language, by our words, by our look in our eyes, that there is some sort of something is wrong or broken with the child. And you can tell from the emotional body that often there is a lot of disappointment and fear. And besides the labeling of disable or learning differences or dyslexia, whatever it is, you also have to get over seeing the disappointment in your parents' eyes because they're afraid for your future and they just don't understand often enough, and they think that dyslexia is a learning disability versus a hyper ability. And a brilliant gift, as you were saying before, Jake, 1 out of 5 are dyslexics, and in every category, in any category of innovation, music, sciences, there's a dyslexic. There's a neurodiverse individual at the helm. But they needed that contrast in order to learn that they know what it is to get over and to build on top of and think differently and think outside of the category. And I think it's so beautiful that the parents can meet that mentor that's much further along than their child and see, oh, how did he or she overcome? And look how they are addressing their community, their work, their relationship, and all of a sudden there's a hope there, and there is an ally there, and there is a community there. and a confidant. And I think that is so, so powerful. And of course, that's just that alone creates transformation. You know, who are these mentors? What's their backgrounds?
Oh, they're some of the coolest people I've ever met.
That's an understatement. That's an
gosh.
understatement. Yeah. I would cool is one thing, but the passion, Gil, I've had hundreds of mentor interviews. I would say at least 90% of all of the mentors that we have on board today, they each said independently, obviously they don't all know each other, but independently in the interview, each of them said, I wish I had this when I was a kid. Where was this when I was a kid? I needed this when I was a kid. Independently, that is by far the most common thing that I hear in any interview. But as far as literally who they are, anywhere, like Jake said, NASA, we had a mentor at Boeing, there's to music artists, to even teachers and university professionals and customer success. Like it spans the entire gamut, because that's the neurodiversity spans. Neurodiversity doesn't pick and choose. It doesn't pick and choose. It just is. Right. And what's people across industry are attracted to this opportunity to give back.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to say, these people, it's so much bigger than just working with someone. They need the mentee. I say they, but it's we, because it's me too, right? We need the kids as much as the kids need us.
Right.
Listen, like, I healed my past through working with my mentees. Healed. And as a guy, I mean, I put that aside. I don't want to think about the pain. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to have a kid one day, and I'm going to relive it because they're going to be on the ceiling with ADHD, right? So if I didn't heal, I would have relived my trauma through my kid. Can you imagine how that would impact me as a parent, right? So, and we are seeing the impact that these parents have because they're reliving it through their kids. So our mentors, we've had mentors that have been inspired to go back to school and get their degree in social work because of this work. This is so much bigger than we even realize.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do the mentors have to have certain kind of credentials in order to be able to do this work?
Yes.
Being a mentor requires stability. So being fully employed, having a career, being a professional, that is something that we are looking very close on. Being in school, studying, that also counts. Going from being on your own path is one of the things we look for. But we take our mentor security, background checks. We do up the wazoo. That is our top priority at all times, as it should be. But our mentors, credentials is lived experience. Beyond the actual resume, the mentors need to have lived it.
Right.
They need to really show that they experienced what we're talking about here, what these kids have gone through. And our number one, our credential that our mentors bring to the table is exactly that. Mm-hmm. And Jake, you have something to add?
One of the credentials is obviously to be able to identify that they have their own learning difference and their own struggles. But beyond that, putting on the cape, right? Because a lot of people today who are neurodiverse, unfortunately, are still struggling massively, right? So it can't just be anybody, right? What we're looking for is that person that has put it on and then they're running with their path, right? We don't have, necessarily full-time mentors. These are all people that are pursuing their dream, right? So we have a course also for them that will be able to teach them the essential skill sets and how to effectively mentor using our method and our philosophies, combined with several other experts and books and all that. But really, it's meant to guide them, move them forward.
Yeah, and I love that they've experienced it. They're a little further ahead. They know what the struggle is, so they can relate to it emotionally and physically, and they know what are the challenges. But they also have some things that they can bring to the child and the family in order to help them through those moments.
Gil, can I ask you a question? What would a mentor have done in your story growing up?
So your question is, what would a mentor would have done when I was young that would have supported my struggles and differences?
Exactly.
I think that a lot of the things that I have experienced as a young child, without knowing it, only in retrospects, was because of the compassion of my family and them indirectly, because you don't call your parents, your mom or your dad coaches, but they did guide me through those tough times. The first thing is not trying is failing, because trying is the only pursuit forward to understand who you are, what you're good at and what you're not, and be able to take, that sort of step forward and saying, you tried and you weren't good at that, and now you know that. And that is a gift. Otherwise, if we try to avoid the pain or the failure, we find ourselves avoiding trying. And that is, as you said, you're kind of stuck. You're not sort of embracing your own God-given, light, that's trying to move toward that contentment, that being a thriving individual. So my parents always said, give it a try. Do you like it? Why are you not practicing the piano? I don't like it. Good. Don't practice the piano. Don't take piano classes. But now you know, and you tried it, and you know what it is to play the piano, not that well. So that was all through my childhood. It was thing. I mean, we've tried so many different stuff, and I've learned through so many people with learning differences and with sort of failure, is that I've learned what it is to fail forward. I am really, really good at failing. And the funny thing about failure, it's the only place to be if you want to be on the cutting edge on anything, because you're about to take a leap and a risk that nobody else did, and you have to be comfortable to say, I will figure it out through the process of discovery, and hopefully half of my choices would be incorrect, so I can adjust. Versus that I am the failure, I am incorrect, I did not succeed, right? So I think my parents were really, really strong, and my family was really strong with that kind of guidance around that. But maybe more than that, as I'm just sort of talking kind of freeform on this, is that they always they always were able to see where I would be. Like, they're always able to see my inner light, even though there's so many moments as a little boy that it was not apparent, right? And the struggle was that was the most loud things in the room. So they always looked at me with that optimism, with the belief that you can do anything if you try. And if you try, you can do anything. Because then you're just no longer sitting in that sort of shadow of the pain. You're moving toward action and toward advocacy and toward agency and toward language that allows you to flow versus get stagnant and dark and sad and lonely, which I've experienced as well. But I've built a relationship with it, And I think that's really to kind of your guys' stories. And I was always meant to do this. I mean, it's funny that I'm in the business of identity, helping others understand their true gifts on an individual, on a nonprofit, on a global level with brands, and really look through them and seeing some of their like discords, where there's lack of flow, and how do we mentor, coach, work together, guide in order to create flow again, to create the desired outcome again that comes from the truth, right? So I think that's through that process that brought me to do what I do today, and I just can't get enough of it. But I think that I got very lucky to have just, and my parents at the time were not traditional parents. So they
Right.
were, my mom is an artist, my father is a businessman, my grandparents were entrepreneurs, three generation, immigrants. So we had so much diversity and difference that was very much, my grandmother was a painter and an artist, so there was a lot of right, left brain in my family that I was very lucky for. But and the funny thing is, to your question, Max, I learned that you never arrive. There's no end goal. There's always pursuit, and that pursuit is the point. Because whenever the moment I would arrive, then what is left? Because every time you get to a new mountain, a new goal, you see a new view, you see a new opportunity, you see a new horizon that you want to reach to, you want to expand further, you want to share more. So I learned to embrace the fact that every day I'm trying to expand and bring people along and share my experience, because that brings people like you guys to my world.
Yeah.
And as they say, like attracts likes. So if I want to be sitting, which that's in many ways is exactly what you guys were talking about with your mentor and matching it, is like, if you get people that are positive with the same condition, it would draw more positive out of you. Could draw more of the same for you, and
It's
then you can learn
contagious.
to do that, right? It's contagious, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
So
self-acceptance. I think that going back, a quality of a mentor is having self-acceptance. Gil, you are a mentor. This show represents a loudspeaker of you bringing on other mentors with dyslexia to share their story. I know many of your guests that have come on, and they all have the most amazing personal experiences of adversity. But it all starts with self-acceptance. We've talked, Gil, I know you've mentioned your aha moment. Jake mentioned putting on the cape. It starts from a very young age. It starts from the home life. I just, coincidentally, I just posted on LinkedIn the other day. We had a family. We met with a family. Jake was talking to this family, and the dad said, we don't use dyslexia. We don't use the word dyslexia. We don't tell our kid that they have dyslexia because it's a crutch. We don't want it to be a crutch. We don't want it to be an excuse. And that's like just at the core, the very opposite of what we believe here. Because if you want dyslexia to be if we want dyslexia to be a superpower, if, Gil, you mentioned very often, dyslexics look at the world, see the world, process the world extremely differently, uniquely, and oftentimes more effectively. How can you harness that power without first recognizing at the very essence that you have it?
Right. And denying that is denying part of the self-identity. One thing we say in our agency is I always try to find what we call the weakness, right?
Yeah.
The discord. Where is your psyche, your confidence, your business, whatever it is, where is it pinch? Because if you run away from it, it's going to get tighter. It's funny when we run away from our own, demons, they chase us. But if we face them, then they sort of relax and they become just part of us. And before you know it, actually, the thing I love the most is the fact that I'm dyslexic through and through.
Yeah.
Because everything I do is dyslexic. And I have a beautiful, colorful life because I feed my dyslexia. Instead of trying to suppress it and change it and I do it, I ask myself, what can I do right now to be more dyslexic? Because that means I'm loving myself, I'm building my confidence, and I'm really acknowledging that's the way I was born, and good or bad or in everything in between, it's who I am, And I often meet, as you guys, a lot of parents that says, well, we don't want to talk about it because we don't want it to be a crutch. It's not a crutch. It's the way my brain works, So
feed it.
Feed it.
Feed it.
Make more of it, And then when you relax, all of a sudden you can dance with it and you can overcome the simple things or the different things, I was talking to a group of students, high school, the other day. And we talked about who is dyslexic, and it was a great conversation between everybody. And at the end, we were kind of wrapped it up by saying, most people that are now with neurodiversity, they are very good linear thinkers. They know how to walk. But us with neuro differences, neuro individuals, we are the one that can leap. We leap over letters, we leap over time, we leap over information. We're the one that can fly. So how is it that if I mention to you, from Muhammad Ali to Michael Jordan to Einstein to the list goes on in every, Cher, the fonts, in every category, these people, you are with a group of superpower individuals, people that can actually do different things. So who in this room is disabled? We're all abled. We're all hyper abilities if we just embrace that, But it have to start from the beginning, which kind of leads me to a question for you, Jake. How old were you when you were diagnosed with ADHD?
It must have been third grade. And it was a really confusing time because, a few years when I started Superpower Mentors, I found my third grade report cards and what the teachers wrote. And reflecting back, when it came to group projects and all that, I was like the top, right? I was the leader. I was so into it, right? But when it came to independent reading, I was the biggest disruption. And in this 2-paragraph analysis of Jake Sussman, 8 of those sentences talked about my behavioral problem. Right? So that was really where things started to begin, of where I was realizing I was different because I was getting thrown out of class every day. But I didn't know why. But I was so good in these other things, but when it came to reading, what is this? I started to realize that, later on that I'm an auditory learner, despite some of my other executive functioning challenges and, time management and reading challenges and all of that, right? Math was very difficult for me to comprehend. So, it was very hard to not compare yourself, right? So, but yet at the same time, in my house, when I was in 6th grade, at that point was the lowest point of my life, what I didn't share in this story was that I had a massive model train set that I was building all on my own, right? And I was teaching myself the electrical engineering part and understanding the terms, and I was doing things that went against my IEP. So it doesn't make sense, right? I had the disability stuff, okay, great, and I wasn't doing the thing in school, yet I can focus better than most people doing the thing over here. Right? So I must not have a focusing problem, yet I was told I do.
Right.
I actually can focus better than most people. So that was kind of where my understanding that I am different came in. And I was so angry, I remember. I was just my guard was up. I was just hated teachers. I was always questioning authority because at a certain point, when your whole world is filled with fear, anxiety, and stress, when your entire relationship with learning is physical pain. Whenever I picked up a book, Gil, I felt a physical reaction to my stomach of pain.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So once that happens, how do you expect to teach a kid how to read?
Right.
Seriously, right? Or in Gillingham, which I'm a big advocate for. It didn't work. Right? It only works as good as the kid open to learning it, right? So for me, I was I'm out. So that's when my parents pulled me out. And when I ended up going to this other school, I'm sitting around the class, and then I realized, they're going, and I had a stutter. I developed a stutter because I was always corrected, right? And it came time to my turn. It was within the first 2 weeks of my new school, and I was sweating because I'm oh no, here we go. Right? I'm going to start stuttering. I'm going to this and that. And I'm going to be made fun of. And all the anxieties and the things are coming up. And I started to talk, and I was talking about my time over the summer, and I was I went to and I started to stutter, and then the girl next to me completed my sentence.
Oh.
right? And then the next kid completed my next sentence. And that, by the way, I only remember from being told because I blocked this whole part of my life out, right?
Yeah.
So what I realized was that for the first time in my life, I was around people and kids that spoke my language. It was crazy. Yeah.
Those are the institutions. So that is the Southport School in Southport, Connecticut. They are, they put Jake on the path to where we are sitting here today. That moment in that classroom is the genesis of Jake's new path that he found to Superpower Mentors. It's like you can look, it's amazing because you can look back at those inflection points of all of a sudden we are now we're going somewhere else. We're going in a new direction. We're going in a new space. We're going to the moon. It's, and those Jake shared it beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah. Where does encouragement came from for you earlier on?
Well, I'm the oldest, right? So I didn't have like an older sibling. I had my younger siblings, but I didn't really have someone to look up to that wasn't just my amazing parents, right? Because my parents, just like yours, Gil, were very invested in me, in my path, and but still, like, it's family. It becomes a little challenging. So actually, my grandmother, I remember, she saved me. She really saved my life. There were two things. One was that she would pick me up from school and take me golfing. And we would just let it out on the course, swearing, and just like, she let me drive the golf cart. And but she just gave me this freedom to just express. Ironically, on a golf course, maybe not the best place to do that, but still, right? She took me away from the toxicity of where my thoughts and feelings and the smells and everything, and then put me somewhere else outside. And we would just bond, and I would just vent, and she would ask me questions, and then she would make me feel confident with myself. So she became that source, right? I had a few teachers as well that I started to lean on. The head of this school, this principal or something of my school in middle school, the new one, whenever I would still get kicked out of class because, again, my guard was still up, right? But whenever I would go to his office, he'd make me do push-ups and sit-ups and jumping jacks. He knew that I had so much energy, I just had to let it out, right? And he saw me for me. And the other side it wasn't really a person, but it was the acknowledgement of my outlets. So my parents saw that my biggest passion was model trains. And in 6th grade, in the lowest point of my life, our basement flooded. So instead of rebuilding our basement, they built a table. And they said, you do the rest. We'll support you. And my mind exploded, right? I would spend hours in my basement building my train set. It's like modern day Minecraft, right? But like just, back in the day, we didn't have that. And yeah, right. So and I would just talk to myself, literally. And I felt like I was God. I could make mountains and towns. And I imagined I get to the eye level. Like, it was my world where I was absolutely, utterly free. So that to me was like, it was the recognition of that. It was my grandmother and some of my teachers were those building blocks for my growth.
Amazing. I love when you look at it back and you look at all these moments, with your grandmother taking out of your own space. What a great advice. You can sit in it and you can talk about it. Get out there, take a hike, look at a tree, drive a golf cart. You would forget, you will forget all the constructs. All of a sudden you become your best self again. Or if you have a lot of energy, feed it, Run after a ball until you can't run no more, or climb a tree, or do whatever feeds it instead of saying, to me, if I have so much energy, sitting still just makes me even more energy. Like, I'm like almost trapped into like the motion of it. I get seasick because it's like, I gotta move it. I gotta do something with it, right?
Right. Recognizing that, because that's actually a thing. right? Where, as I kept reflecting back in my life, I had three main outlets that I gravitated toward that helped me feel in control. And we took a lot of these concepts and put them into our program today. And I'll give you an example, right? What we've identified in our program to help people find their confidence, one of the things that we do is we look at their outlets. Right? Today, kids have the video games and they have the whatever. We all have outlets, but what we have to realize is that none of them are random. We all gravitate to the specific outlet for a reason, to the point of like, what video game are they playing? Right? There's a reason for it. What position in soccer on the field are they gravitating to? Is it goalie? Is it defense, offense? What is it? So the point though is this. There's three main categories. Right? There's an outlet that boosts our heart rate, passion, and creative expression. Heart rate is getting oxygen to your brain, right? So I had running growing up. That was my thing, right? Passion was my model trains. And creative expression was also my model. It could be both, right? Was also my model train. So I had that place to feel expressed, and the passion was the thing that threw the covers out of bed in the morning. So for parents listening, right, and if you recognize that your kid is, let's say, not getting out of bed in the morning, right, maybe they're missing passion that wakes them up. Right? And we help our kids find those early on in the relationship in our program.
Such great advice. Such great advice. Max, what would you say to maybe neurodiverse individuals that have yet to embrace their passion, yet to find their identity? What would you say to them in order to sort of help them find that gift?
I would say you need to look at yourself in the mirror and imagine. Shut your eyes, look at yourself in the mirror, or shut your eyes wherever you are, and think of yourself as an explorer. Someone that is discovering something new, someone that is going out there, going out, pushing boundaries, seeing where life goes, because you're not going to find it the first time, probably. You're not going to find it the second time. But as an explorer, you can't just sit there and say, all right, I'm done. Nothing's happening. Being able to put yourself in that seat of, I'm going to find this, no matter what, I'm going to find what I like, what my passion is at all costs. Because there is something, believe me, there is something for you. The worst thing that can happen is for you to accept that there's nothing, because that is just a falsehood. Put on that explorer cap and just keep going. Because you're going to land on something. And if you don't land on something today, if you don't land on something tomorrow, at least you tried. And that's a win. And that's a win.
I love that. I think that you're so spot on with that observation and recommendation. Often, and I see it with young individuals, it's like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I think that they're asking the wrong question. Because I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I'm still growing up. And hopefully I'm never going to know what I want to be. But I know that I've learned to move toward things that give me joy and give me contentment. For if the only reason it just feels good to do it. And that's usually a great place to start. Like you may not know why you like to. Here's a story. I was in Florida giving a talk, and a mother came to me at the end of the talk and was very passionate. She was so inspired. Her daughter was upstairs, a teenager, and she's like, I don't know what she's gonna do, and I'm so worried. And she's so not willing to even come to the talk, and she says, I don't know what she's gonna do. I don't know what her gift is. And I asked her, what does she likes to do when nobody's watching? And she said, oh, she just loves being with the dog. And the dog loves her. And, she can train that dog, and she can take that dog for a hike, and she throws the ball in the backyard, and she just gets her, so I said, what are you not seeing here? The mother looked at me like, I don't know what you mean. And I said, this child get to be her best self when she is with animals. And the animals know that because they see her, and they see her, the joy that this gives her. Maybe she'll be a veterinarian. And she looked at me like, how did you figure this out? And I was like, because I wasn't trying to solve her. I wasn't trying to change her. I'm trying to let her lead. You have to let your child lead toward the things that when nobody's looking, they love to do, whatever they are, and then allow them to do more of it. Because eventually that's going to give the truth to the gift, which is exactly what you both are saying. You know, we left her, she was really just, it was like a paradigm shift. In 1 minute, she had a paradigm shift. And then I said, she's like, what's the next steps? I was like, get her another dog. And she looked at me and was like, get her to volunteer with the neighbors, you know, animals or the ASPCA or anything that feeds that to her. She walked out of there. She gave me a hug. She said, can I give you a hug? She literally saw her daughter for the first time again in a way that it's going to change the daughter, the mother, and the whole family. You know? So, yeah.
Something that's so dangerous is... and something I'm very grateful for my own experience growing up with our parents is there was no predetermined path. We did not have a path. It was, what are you interested in? I'm interested in basketball. All right, let's support Max playing basketball. Max is going to do his thing. Like, that's how my parents raised us. There was no, you need to have an all A's. It was, as long as you're doing your best, that's all that matters. They instilled the value of self-worth and pride. And I'm so grateful for my parents for doing that. But to mention another piece of advice I would give someone that's looking for their passion is that there is no rush. There is no rush. Like you said, Gil, you're still trying to grow up. You're still trying to grow up into the older version of yourself. My path through school, I repeated 5th grade. I went from school, public school to private school to public school to private school. No joke. Each one of those moments was stepping outside the path. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just following what I wanted to do and where my heart was saying, and I had a supportive crowd cheering me on. Mm-hmm. If you have, if your child or if your friend or if you yourself are wondering, like, where is my direction? Where's my path? Just know that time is not against you. And if you are trying to rush into something, then you will not be happy. You don't know if that's a genuine path, if that's a genuine passion, or it's just a facade that you're trying to create because you feel rushed or pressured to actually have something that you gravitate towards.
What's the best way for people out there that are listening today that want to follow you, wants to learn more, wants to get a mentor from you guys? What's the best way for them to reach out?
The best way you can do that is to visit our website, which is www.superpowermentors.com. You can reach out to us from there. You can check us out on our social medias, which is superpower_mentors, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Or you can find us individually and contact us. So we're here.
We'll link. It'll all be linked. Yeah. It'll all be linked. Yeah.
We'll make sure to include all of your websites, your poem, and the beautiful film on that in the show notes as well. You guys, thank you so much for everything you're doing. Always so inspiring to talk to you, Jake and Max, and I just so glad we crossed paths. And I know what you're doing is really just like the most amazing. So thank you, and thank you for taking the time today and talking to us and being so candid and open about your own experiences. So I really appreciate you both.
It's important, Gil. So thank you for inviting us on.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Gil. This has been incredible, and your work in the community is second to none. So thank you.
We need you. So thank you.
Well, that's really sort of, if it was not for you or for me, or more importantly, and I think really with the heart of why we're all doing is for our greater communities, wherever you are, wherever you're listening to us, on anywhere you get your podcast, please follow us, please subscribe, please share it with your community. If you have any thoughts, ideas, you want to hear us sort of double down on other questions, comment on the show notes. Let us know how we can improve it and what else can we offer, because we are here for you all out there. And, as we say, if we can change one person's life, isn't that enough already? And you guys are going up to past 10,000. So you guys are doing it in spades. So thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed our conversation today, be sure to subscribe to this series wherever you get your podcasts. Visit DyslexicDesignThinking.com to learn more about our latest initiatives, including Dear Dyslexia, the Postcard Project, or to book Gil to speak at your next event or conference. Stay connected on Instagram at Dyslexic Design Thinking, or drop us a line at dyslexic@gershoni.com to receive our monthly newsletter and learn more about our upcoming programming. Dyslexic Design Thinking is produced by Gershoni Creative. Until next time, be well.